Hey guys, so this is a kind of different video that I wanted to make because it's a very important topic to talk about in regards to mental health and all of the sorts. I kind of wanted to clear the air when it comes to certain mental disorders because in society, especially in the Geometry Dash community, people are very often picked on and stigmatized for having some sort of mental disorder. And this could range from multiple of different disorders, whether it be autism spectrum disorder, attention deficit disorder, or ADHD. And this is a less common one, but I've seen it happen around in different communities here and there, but eating disorders also exist. This is kind of a video in which I want to just tackle these different disorders and educate people on the misconceptions and potentially reshape the way in which they think of them. And I don't want this video to be as long as it should be, because it's a very touchy subject, and all I ever wanted to do with this video is to just make people who may suffer from these disorders feel as comfortable and respected as possible, because they deserve to feel as though they are a part of the communities that they are a part of. And so this video should be long enough to show people what actually goes on in these disorders. So yeah. Let's start with autism spectrum disorder. Many people tend to say that people with some level of autism, whether it be Asperger's or something similar, lack empathy, do not want to communicate with other people because they think they're self-centered or intellectually inept. But the truth is, there's not really a real cause to it, and many factors can and don't go into play when it comes to it, such as genetics. There are environmental factors when it comes to society or family. Nature versus nurture becomes more of a nature and nurture thing, so these factors could be working in conjunction with one another, but this doesn't mean we should be labeling people with autism as unintelligent, self-centered, or just plainly simple dumb. Most Americans, particularly those in minority groups with autism, typically cannot get the early treatment that they need in order to help them steady their path to the world with a more suitable point of view, or just in general a more suitable way. Some people wait until the age of 6 to 8 years old until they are able to be treated properly, and that's something that we need to recognize, as autism spectrum disorder is a real disorder that needs to be talked about in a more comfortable tone of light instead of being joked about it. It's important to treat those with autism spectrum disorder with some level of kindness and compassion, while also giving them space to grow and make connections on their own, because thrusting them into such a quick world like in a community like Geometry Dash is not something that they would particularly be interested in or comfortable in either. And so it's better to just go step by step with them and help them grow in areas such as language or communication, social skills and cues, and obviously self-care. I know a couple people in my life who are diagnosed with autism, and they are genuinely some of the sweetest people I've ever met. So just as long as you approach them slowly and calmly, treat them so that they feel comfortable, reassure them, and be calm and nice to them, then they would feel comfortable and respected in the communities that they want to be in. Moving on from that, we have attention deficit disorders. In particular, we have ADHD. People with ADHD are typically labeled as lazy, unproductive, and they say that ADHD could be caused by screen time or bad parenting, and much more. But in reality, ADHD is much more complex than that. ADHD is mainly biological because it's caused by genetics and a lack of dopamine in the brain. And this causes a lot of the inattention and lack of production, quote unquote, that people typically see people with ADHD to have. And it's also more complex in regards to the root issues that happen as a result. And yes, the inattention is one of those main issues that people tend to associate ADHD with, but impulsivity and hyperactivity also comes into play when it comes to ADHD. It's best when approaching people with ADHD that you don't rush them or make them feel as though they are meant to be lazy. ADHD treatment is also very difficult because many people believe that medication is the main way in which people may be able to quote unquote fix ADHD. And although medication does help people, it isn't meant to completely fix ADHD, and it should only ever be used whenever necessary or whenever someone is prescribed to by a psychiatrist. Besides, treatments like behavioral therapy or certain interventions also exist in order to combat the symptoms of ADHD, and they sometimes work better than medications because it at least gives them something to do and gets them into the habit of doing something so they can manage their life in a more healthy and better way. I also know multiple people with ADHD, and they are all extremely nice and well, and often feel really bad for having ADHD because they feel stigmatized and feel as though they were always meant to feel lazy and all of that sorts. Help them feel motivated through the means that you can, and always treat them with the care that they need, because they're going through so many different things, and the last thing that they want is someone to pressure them into doing something that they don't want to do. Last but not least, something that isn't necessarily talked about as much in my opinion is eating disorders. And in my experience, I've only ever known one person who has an eating disorder, but just from that one person alone, it is much more different in reality than it is in the way that most people might think it is. And people tend to sum up eating disorders like this. They only want to be skinny, they choose to do this messed up routine, and that only skinny people tend to have these disorders. And there's a lot more different misconceptions that people have about eating disorders, but it goes much more deeper than that. People with eating disorders develop eating disorders as a result of multiple societal factors, which can range from home or family environments, or even just genetics in general. The idea that they would choose to develop an eating disorder is such a weird and really distasteful take that can only really be described as people being uneducated or unaware of the facts about eating disorders. So, yeah. Not everyone who has eating disorders are skinny either, as there are multiple people who may or may not be diagnosed that are of normal weight. Some people with eating disorders like bulimia are also aware of their unhealthy obsessions, and they do genuinely want to stop, but just can't because it's as a result of habit and multiple different factors. Many people think that eating disorders only contribute to being skinny, but these also lead to many different health complications and diseases, like diabetes. And so to understand, diagnose, and treat people with eating disorders like anorexia or bulimia is absolutely necessary so that they don't develop some sort of problem in the future. Speaking of treatment, people tend to go to the behavioral therapy sessions or look for some kind of medication to help them with their eating disorders. And although some medications work with eating disorders like binge eating disorder or bulimia, they might not work the same way with things such as anorexia. And so treatment is very complex in regards to how eating disorders work. So it's very important that if you do meet someone with an eating disorder, to not immediately pressure them into not doing what they're doing. It does take a long time to get them to stop, and not one single person is going to be able to fix what has become a habitual routine. Treat them with, again, kindness, respect, and comfortability, and to encourage them always that they can and will get better. And this applies to every single one of the disorders that have been covered in this video. By adding fuel to the fire, you're only going to make the stigmas worse. So to treat them with kindness and comfortableness is of utmost responsibility. And there you have it, that's the video. Again, this video was definitely not something you may have expected from me, and I genuinely apologize if some of the talk in this video was uncomfortable to you. But in general, I think these topics should be discussed as much as they can, because people with any kind of disorders, whether it be personality disorders, dissociative disorders, neurocognitive, schizophrenic, substance-related, mood, etc., just anything, really are suffering from one common thing, and that's misconception and stigma. So it's best that we don't joke around when it comes to these topics as much, and do what we can to make those with these disorders feel accepted and less debilitated in communities as they once were. They're all human too, and just as we are, we live in a world where it is mostly inhabited by human beings. We should treat each other with respect and kindness, no matter what kind of thing we suffer from. I hope this video finds you well, so take care everyone, and see you in another video.